Hi, guys. Cecile Edwards here of the Mommy Matters podcast. I have to tell you, if you have not heard about Anchor, it is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. And Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. Did I tell you that you can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership? It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So download your Anchor app or go to Anchor FM, anchor.fm to get started. You will not be dissatisfied. Welcome to the Mommy Matters podcast, where Mommy Matters is a double entendre that states and declares that mommies matter, where we have conversations surrounding mommy matters, from conception to pregnancy to postpartum, mother and father wounds, dating, mindfulness and self-care, spirituality, parenting, discipline, legislation, money, and so much more. It is my hope and my prayer that the information that you gather here serves as a blueprint for generational and individual ascension. Enjoy. Welcome to the mommyEvolve podcast. Welcome back. I feel like I've been gone too long, and I am so happy to be here to continue our conversation about self-care. And this is going to be self-care from a little bit of a different angle because our title today is self-care and relationships. And so, as you know, the Mommy Matters podcast talks about all things mommy, particularly self-care. And self-care, what I call sacred self-care, holistic self-care, self-care that is deep, not just the surface, I'm taking care of myself, or just, going to get a massage or sitting in the bathtub. All of those things have a purpose. And the purpose is to get in better relationship with yourself, so that you can clearly meet other relationships and clearly be intentional about your life. But we're going to get more in depth with that in this conversation. And today I have a special guest, the owner and CEO of Shea Fabine, a self-care company. And I have my lovely guest, Johanne Osias, on with us today to discuss self-care and relationships, using her many years as a counselor to discuss this topic in the way that she sees it. And I know that you will get plenty out of this conversation in ways to really see self-care from a different angle and to incorporate various strategies into your life. So before I start talking too much, I want to have Johanne introduce herself and tell us a little bit about herself, her business, and then we'll hop into the questions and answers. So, Johanne.
Hi, everyone, and hi, Cecile. Thank you so much for having me on. A little bit about myself, if you guys can hear the accent. I am originally from Haiti, but I've lived in the state for 20 years now, and my business, although it is new-ish, I've been practicing self-care since I was little. I like to tell people I take a nap once a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's part of my regime, so definitely that's one of the things I do. So a little bit about Chez Fabine. It is a place where you learn how to fully give back to yourself and be a little selfish, because most people have the guilt when it comes to doing self-care. And I'm like, oh, no, no, no. You need to be good for everybody else to be better, mommy especially. So Chez Fabine, we have one-on-one coaching. We have a I Love Me program that really focus on just you. so you can be good for yourself and the other relationship you have going on. So that's my little intro.
Excellent. And I love how you say give back to yourself.
Yes.
Right. So when we hear give back, typically that's a different spin because we hear give back and we hear give back to our communities, to our families, but we don't typically hear about giving back to ourselves.
Yeah.
But the truth of the matter is that we do have to give back to ourselves when we have given out so much of our skills, our talents, our brain waves, our
Do
energy,
that multitasking and
ourselves.
everyone else.
Right. That's what they say anyway. I don't think that we're good at multitasking. I think that we just do a lot because we feel like that's what we have to do. But, and that because I know I don't like doing a lot of stuff, but that's just you can call it what you want. That's just the reality in my mind. I have, but part of my life now is very conscientious that I do not put a bunch of things like I literally just yesterday had to text several people and tell them no to certain things that they wanted me to do. And I was just like, no, that the thought of doing that is stressing me out. And if it's not adding to my wellness at this point, then I don't need it.
Having clear boundaries and being able to say no without feeling guilty or eating you out. So one of my saying is, if I'm overwhelmed, I'm taking a nap.
Right.
So don't overwhelm me. If I feel overwhelmed, I need a break.
Right.
I want to feel centered and good of what I'm doing. So
exactly. And that brings us to the conversation about self-care and relationships, because oftentimes, I mean, that's where we lose our center for taking care of ourselves, because we feel like we have to compromise ourselves and our inner guidance system. I mean, yes, you compromise, but if it's compromising you to the point where you are losing yourself, draining yourself, then
you're hurting yourself. And that's what's the saying? You don't have to burn yourself to keep somebody else's warm.
Exactly. So the first question that I have for you is, how do you manage your self-care in relation to your family life?
So with my partner, we have been together for 16 years now, and we've been married for 8. And I am happy to say I've been doing self-care since the beginning of the relationship. So it's not weird to them for me saying, mommy needs to go read a book, or mommy needs to go to the room and close the door. So they are used to it. But another thing we do is, I like to say it's an equal opportunity household. So we have a chart, and we have mommy day off, daddy day off, family activities day, and my daughter is 8 now. So she's like, when do I get a day off? And I'm like, that is true. I have to figure that out too, because she can tell. Now she knows. So she goes to the salt therapy with me. There's other stuff I'm teaching her now. Like, okay, if you're feeling overwhelmed, let's do deep breathing. They're not into the meditation yet, but I'm trying to introduce those new things to them. So if we are friends, or if you just met me, I tell everyone I have not worked a 9-to-5 jobs since I graduated from grad school. And that was 9 years ago. Because I've learned I am a morning person. I will be up early, 5, 6, but I will not leave my house before 8 or 9. I'm like, I can't do it. I need to be home, and I need to nap in the afternoon. So how do I do a 9-to-5 and take a nap? So if I go on an interview, I actually say that. I'm like, no, if the shift is for me to be here all day, where do I get a space to nap? And usually people laugh, and I'm like, no, I know myself enough to know to honor myself. I need a break. And if I don't get that, it's not going to happen. So I don't have the guilt of saying no. I have strong boundaries, and everyone that come in contact with me, I give you that same permission. So if you're like, oh, you want to do this? I think about it. If I say yes, it's a yes. If I say no, it's a no. And if I say maybe, it's a no. Because I don't waver for my.
I had to think about it too hard, right?
So I'm like, if I have to think about it, it's not a hell yes. So it's a no. So that's the way all my relationships, like all my friends would be like, oh yeah, Joe, if she doesn't want to be here, I don't have a poker face. I can lie to you. If I cannot be in the room, I'm just like, no, I'm good. I'd much
Mhm.
rather, like, I am an extrovert, introvert. I
Mhm.
can be with a group of people if I know I'm doing that, but if I need my space, oh my Lord, I will take my space.
Right.
So that's how
Yeah,
it works for me.
I love what you said because one, the family schedule is so very critical. And that's something that I've had to ease into where Sundays are my day. Do not
Mhm.
like, don't even bother me. And they know I have different groups and sister circles that I go to, and I make myself go to them because those are part of my self care too, being around, positive people. And I try to get my daughter is good with her self care. I let her sleep, because at their ages, they're young, they need to sleep a lot. We do too. As adults, we need to sleep and take those naps. I'm very much into naps, and I found that same thing out about myself that, working a 9 to 5, I would always get tired around the same time of day. And now that I have not been working a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4, I find that same time of day, I'm taking a nap, right? And so
And it's
your
funny is that
body,
your body knows. Like my husband can look at me and be like, I think it's time. Like your face is
right,
doing the
right.
funny thing. So
Right. So you have to, as you said, know yourself. You have to honor what you know about yourself. You have to keep your boundaries very clear. Like, listen, if this is not adding to my, wellness, then because you do have to, I don't think that everything about self care is necessarily something that's going to be quote unquote easy for you to do.
exactly.
Right. So sometimes there's going to be situations where, like, for example, just today, my friend, made a commitment to myself that I would walk 3 or 4 times a week, 4 miles. Right. So today, my friend said, do you want to walk? I was sleepy. I had just gotten up from a small nap. I was sleepy, but I said, you know what? Let me go because I need to get up and do that, because that is part of my self care and I'm building this habit in my routine.
Which
That
is
may
good. That is good. Because my new thing is my physical health is part of my self care. I
Mhm.
do everything else as well. And then I'm like, oh, and I used to run. I used to run. I used to do all those things before the kids. And I'm like, I just don't feel like it. But today our cheat sheet was the Dance Revolution on PlayStation. That's
Mhm.
what we did in the house. Like we didn't leave the house, but we actually danced to a few stuff. And I sweat. So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
wasn't work out. I'm just like, okay, I didn't go to my walk, but I find another way to do the physical part.
I
So
think that that's a huge part of your self-care is keeping your commitments to yourself.
mhm,
Because when you say that you're going to do something, you need to do it because that builds up your self-esteem. It moves you closer to your goals. It keeps you accountable. It releases anxiety from you because you know that you're walking in what it is that you actually desire for your life as opposed to running away from it.
exactly.
And, that may not be easy. If you have to look at your finances honestly, because your financial wellness is part of self-care as well. So your relationship to your money is part of your self-care. Um, but you cannot run away from it. You have
Oh
to
no.
look at that squarely in the eyes and deal with it. And so this is why I always say personally that self-care is a mindset.
It is
It's
a
not
mindset.
just about what you do. It's about really having a love for yourself to the point where you are going to build the habits within yourself where you're going to do what it is that you need to do to get yourself where you desire to go.
Exactly.
So, and that can look like a lot of different things. So that's why it's so different for everybody.
And
Um,
that's one of the things I tell people. Me doing all the thing I do, if we come in contact, you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing because that might not be what you need. So one
mhm.
of the things I try to have people focus on, like, where are you spiritually? Where are you physically, mentally, sexually, emotionally? Where are you in those areas? That way, wherever you feel like, okay, this is where I stress the most, this is what I do the most, go ahead and build your self-care around that. Because if you're like, oh, she said she just take a bath, let me go ahead. I'm like, if a bath is not what you need to start loving yourself, it's not gonna help. Yeah, you might
Right.
take a bath, but it's not gonna add anything extra because that's not really where you need to focus on to build
Right.
that practice.
Exactly. And it's not about things looking perfect either
Oh no,
because Your self-care with your family might look like you getting into a verbal scuffle with them because they're doing something shady. You know what I'm saying? Or or you telling your children that they need to chill out because you are tired. All of those things are part of your self-care too.
It's all the honest conversation. Like,
Right.
I know you need this or you want this right now, but mommy's not able. And we're not gonna get in the car and drive around if mommy's sleeping because that's not gonna be good for anybody at all.
Exactly.
So let's learn how to chill, read a book, do something else.
Exactly.
Let's all try to do a little self-care for ourselves.
Exactly. And I had to tell my daughter that this year. She used to do dance for some years. And I said, this year we cannot do that because mommy is not capable of doing the level of running around. It's too much. Not only that, but you starting middle school and wanting to do all of these other activities. And I take my hat off to parents that do these 10 activities with each of their children. Like, I don't know how they do it.
10. Whew.
I don't know how they do it. I don't know how many they do them, but it just always seems like a lot to me. I don't know how they do it financially. I don't know how they do it time-wise, but it exhausts me just thinking about it personally.
Yeah. And then I'm pretty sure most of the family that do that many things, there's no way they are taking care of themselves. That's way too much. No human being should be juggling that many stuff just for the kids. And I think sometimes we give our kids not that what they need, but something like we feel like, oh, we didn't have this when we were growing up. So now let's make sure they get that. And I'm like, maybe that's not what they need. And if we're giving them something from a place of fear, it's definitely what they need. Because you want to come from a place of, okay, I heal what was broken in me as a child. Now I can love you in a space of, I'm coming from love. Instead of like, oh, it's the fear, or it's the scarcity, I didn't have this. So now you need to have this.
Right.
So sometimes I have to have that conversation. I'm like, I do not buy my children any gifts during the holidays. Now, they do have a lot of aunties and uncles and grandmas from both sides and grandpas. So they get those things. So it's my thing is like, mommy will give you everything else, but I'm not going to buy you a toy for you to play with it for 2 hours. And then it's sitting in my house. Yep. So last year, when I actually explained that to my sister, she actually got angry. She said, what? You're letting us buy them? And I'm like, no, you want to buy them stuff. That's okay. But you cannot be mad at me because I'm not the one buying them extra gifts. I'm like, they have stuff they have not touched in a few years now. So what's the idea of like, oh, no, then I'm like, that's not going to make them happy. So I'm all about experiences. I'm like, I will travel with you. I will take you to the museum. We'll go to I'm like, I will do stuff where you're going to have the experience than me just buying you a toy. So if they have toys, I have not. My husband might end up buying them something, but not me. I'm like, no. You don't need that.
I am absolutely the same way. What do you need is always my question. What do you need? Not what you want. Okay. What do you need? Do you need some new shoes? Do you need, some money in your college, plan or whatever? You can always do that. But I think that you hit on a great subject because it's also a lot of times we avoid or don't practice individualized self-care because we are trying to keep up with the Joneses in terms of running around.
I don't know if you can curse here, but after Joneses.
Yeah, I don't even know who the Joneses are, but I ain't trying to keep up with them.
Yeah, we're not keeping
up. But I do think that a lot of people, end up living in a concept of what something should look like, and they end up doing all of these things and they end up burnt out, or they end up on the wrong side financially, or they end up ill, or they end up with a bunch of stuff that they can't maintain, or they end up teaching their children unvaluable or invaluable lessons, or lessons that aren't really elevating the family's legacy, but just keeping them doing the same thing that everyone else is doing, and so those things are also a part of your self-care, because self-care, again, is not just the what you see outside that people are doing. It's how it affects your overall bottom line.
Yeah. And what's the goal? Am I doing this to show off? Am I doing this because it make me feel good. Or uh, in Haiti, we have a thing like farewell. So we're doing this just to show off, just so our neighbors can tell, like, oh, we are in a good place. And I'm like, no, that doesn't last. And if you're
Exactly. And all
struggling,
that does is
they're
stress you
gonna
out.
catch up with you. So I don't have the time of the day for me to show off. I'm like, I know what I bring to the table, and I'm okay with
Exactly.
that.
Exactly.
So I'm like, I don't have to be like, I'm like, no, no, no. I know who I am. I've known who I am a long time ago. And if sometimes I have to remind myself who I am, I can do that. But I'm not gonna do something just so I can be like, oh, this is what the Joneses are doing. I need to keep up. I don't know what they have to do to get there. So
Exactly.
how am I comparing myself to that part? So yeah, self-care sometimes about the community. Who
Mhm.
are you hanging out with? And are those
Exactly.
people adding to your lifestyle or not? And if you
Exactly.
always feel like when you hang out with that group, you come back feeling empty, that's not where you need to be.
Exactly. And that is on the flip side of, self-care and relationships. How are you building authentic, loving, caring, nurturing relationships?
Where do you find your
You
tribe
may,
and niche?
exactly. You should be able to, or it should be a part of your goal. I hate to use the word should, but it should be a part of your um plan to learn how to build those kinds of relationship and release whatever things we have been taught and told are dangerous about relationships, and create, make ourselves vulnerable
Yeah,
to building
and I
authentic
think
relationships.
one of the things I've learned is when people say, "Oh, I don't trust others," I'm like, "You don't trust yourself.
Exactly.
If you trust yourself, you will not worry about another person what they're doing."
Mm-hmm.
So it's learning, okay, hey, what is it about that situation trigger me that I'm feeling this way? Why do I feel like I'm gonna lose myself in this situation?
Correct. Yes, and trust
And
me,
sometimes it's hard, but if
no,
you figure
it's
that
very
out,
hard.
oh my God. It's like, okay. So when you walk into the room, you don't have to compare yourself to anyone? That's possible? Oh wow.
Now, trust me, I
It's a
have
freedom.
been there. I have been there, and I get it. And it's rooted in a lot of trauma. It's rooted in what you have learned as a child to believe about other people and how you can trust them and who you can trust. And a lot of it is illusions, right?
Exactly.
Because we learn to trust all this stuff outside of ourselves,
And
or
not, yeah,
trust the
not
thing
our
that
gut
looks
instincts and not our intuition. That's one thing, like that it's a disservice. It's like, oh, if you feel this way, oh, don't worry about it. Don't say that. don't teach our children that. Like, no, if they feel some kind of energy around someone or something, explore that. But don't be like, oh, just ignore it. It's okay. We know this
exactly.
person for so long. How dare you question them? Oh no. If my child say, I don't like being around this person, we are not gonna be around this person. And I don't even care if it's a family member. No, I'm not putting your life in jeopardy because I'm like, oh no, we've known that person for so long. What is it about? I'm like, no, that's okay. What did you say? Okay, let's talk about it.
Exactly.
Let's
No,
honor
because
that feeling and intuition and gut instinct. So that's one thing we have to talk about in a society. Like vibes it's the truth.
yeah.
No vibe will not lie to you.
Exactly. Especially in children where it may not be, damaged. Sometimes as adults, we have to get back to our natural instincts and learn how to retrust it again. But, again, we have to be mindful that, we don't teach children that the things that look glitzy and glittery are the things that we can trust just because of the way it looks.
Exactly.
And trusting that thing outside of themselves as opposed to trusting what is inside of themselves is such a critical thing. But we have to do that work as adults in order to even usher children into that
Yeah.
space, because if we haven't done that work ourselves, we're not
We
actively.
are teaching from a place of being broken already.
Exactly. We're not being authentic with that lesson, or we're not really teaching them anything. We're just, kind of guessing.
Yeah. And I
Um,
don't think if I said my background is in mental health therapy.
I was just getting into that. And I was going to say, because this is I feel like it's a huge consideration in
Yeah,
terms of self-care and helping professionals, because we
exactly.
just
And it's
saw we just saw recently that there was a I saw this article floating around on Facebook, and honestly, I tend to not be too looking into those kinds of things, simply because I know fake stuff floats around Facebook. It looks good and it triggers reactions.
Yeah.
But from what I know from working in the mental health field, I know that a lot of mental health professionals are in need of some serious self-care. They need,
Yes. It's interesting how in that profession you're all ready to help a client, a customer, and all these things, and we are trying to teach them how to cope with some stuff and giving them skills, and then a lot of people in that profession are burned out, and it's like, so we're teaching all these things, and we're not looking back and be like, oh, you're still a human, you still have feelings, and there's all those equal references. So you are taking on, and what I like to call is secondhand trauma. So you hear all this stuff and you don't think it's affecting you in any way? Come on.
Not only that, what I notice about a lot of mental health professionals is that they are not fully processed themselves. They haven't fully processed a lot of their own traumas, and they put their moral interpretations
on what's going on
into how they interpret giving or helping a person with their issue. So I've seen many times where the counselor or whatever would give certain advice to a client, and it was skewed based on that person's own
belief,
but not just their beliefs, but their actions and the things that they were doing that was not appropriate. And you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like,
and that's one thing I think I love to disclose. I've been in therapy, and my longest was like for a year, and then I did 2 years of therapy, and I loved it. So putting me in a room where I can talk about myself and process what's going on, OMG. I'm like, I am all for it. I get it. So I didn't become a therapist without going to therapy myself. So I'm always like, how you teaching or practicing something you're not doing yourself. So when I get into the room, I'm like, all my clients know, oh yeah, she will. I do go on vacation. One of my biggest self-care is mommy solo trip. So once a year, unless I'm breastfeeding somebody, I will take them with me if I'm breastfeeding. I go somewhere out of the country, out of the state, by myself for at least 5 to 7 days. And I do not feel guilty because I'm like, that's part of my self-care. I'm like, in this profession, when they give me the days off, I take them. Absolutely. I don't let them drop. I'm like, no, I'm good. I will take all my days and go somewhere and just be and process what's going on. So it's good to go into supervision. It's good to do all this, but it's good to know, like, where do you stand? Because the idea is most people in the field will be like, oh, now that I'm burnt out, we forgot why we wanted to do therapy, why we wanted to be a counselor, and we're like, oh, we just need to quit. No, you might need to take a break, a step back. In March, I took 5 months off because I was just like, there's way too much going on. I need a break. I cannot keep hearing all this trauma. I'm giving myself a break. Now,
but at the same time, I think just like you built it into your family structure, I think these organizations need to build it into their structure, because you cannot continue to burn out professionals and think that they're going to stay in it. It's just like same thing with education and the other helping professions.
Around is so quick. It's like, oh, how long you been here? And I'm like, it doesn't make sense if everybody's new. It's like, what do we need to do differently to keep the professional happy? And they have the system that, okay, if I call in for a sick day or taking a mental health day, they're not gonna make me feel bad about that. It was like this week. So now, granted, I'm only working part-time now. I went back to work in August. So I took a nice break. And I didn't go back full-time. I'm doing part-time, and I don't have to hop on the highway to go to work, because I was like, I'm in Georgia. So I'm south of Atlanta. So I don't want to be in traffic for 2 hours to see someone for 1 hour and spend another 2 hours in traffic. I've learned my lesson. So now I know. I'm like, oh, where is that person is? Oh, it's an hour away. Nope. So it took me 2 months to build my caseload because I keep saying no. And they're like, you're going to keep saying no? I'm like, yeah, if they live more than 30, 40 minutes from my house, I'm not going.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all looking at me like, it's been 2 months. Don't you need something on your caseload? I'm like, no, I'm not going to sacrifice myself. So it's having that clear, very clear boundaries like, oh, she's not like,
Definitely.
not changing her mind at all. I'm like, no, I'm not. If I do the MapQuest or Google Map and it's saying like they're all the way, hour away, we're good.
Yeah. No, I'm the same way. I've never worked more than the furthest I've ever driven to work was 30 minutes. And that was a stretch. Okay. That was a stretch. But usually wherever I work is literally very close to me. Or much of it is at home at this point, and I'm really moving into just being at home because I just like to be at home and work from home. But you definitely said something that's very important, that again, organizations need to be mindful of how they incorporate that into their organizations, not just to stop the turnover, but stop um, the drain of the people who are there, in terms of them just not being really into their job, like they just coming and going through the motions as opposed to actually being effective. And we see that again in many helping professions. People may be there, but they're physically there, but they're not there. They're
I
like,
know you like some stats. So one of the things I discovered was 80% of Americans hate their job.
oh gosh, that's a lot.
I'm like, that is way too high.
Wow.
What? Like, no. You spend how many hours at work? And you go in, so of course you're going to be drained. If you're doing something, and that's why they say if you do something that you love, it doesn't feel like work no more.
Right.
So now, loving something and actually know how to maintain the balance, that's another thing to talk about. It's like, okay, how are you catering? Yes, you want me to go see the clients and it's about the money, but how are you catering to me so when I go see my client, I'm giving them the best version of myself so they can learn something from here.
Exactly.
Because like I like to say, is like, if I'm in a room with you, we are in therapy. Right. Because I want my spirit, my love to translate to you.
Right.
Because I don't want to come out and be like, oh, did they get anything from here?
Right.
So,
right. That's absolutely correct. And I mean, it's a part of that understanding of relationships. I feel like, in terms of just when you're in a helping profession, you do build relationships with the people that you are working for, and it's hard to build a healthy relationship, when the person who is in doing the therapy, or the therapist, is not well, or
fully present.
Yeah. That's how even more that transference comes in. And you need to be able to hold your boundaries while also being that professional. So yeah, I think that's definitely a great point. So can you share some tips?
Yes, ma'am.
How to start us? I know you said earlier that, first of all, everything is individualized.
Yes.
I think for me, I always start with, well, why don't you think that self-care is important, and really getting into that? Where did you learn that behavior from? Because it is learned, so it can be unlearned, right? And so
anything that's learned can be unlearned. So I'm gonna go in my little course and just give you guys a little glimpse. So what I like, so I was not always a happy person, I like to say, because when people meet me now, I'm so bubbly. You'll be like, oh my God, no. I was not always bubbly. If you look at all my baby pictures, I was a mean baby. Yeah. I was just like, something was bothering me. I didn't have the sense of smiling. But when I became a teenager, so I left Haiti when I was 15. So I was already a teenager. So when I got here, I was so mad at the world that I had to learn, like, okay, my parents are doing the best that they can. So I
Mm-hmm.
cannot put everything on them. And how do I process what's going on without having to be like this angry person? So hence, that's why I went to therapy, because nobody understood why I was so mad when
Mm-hmm.
all the family was back together. I'm like, I already had a life. You guys
Mm-hmm.
uproot me, bring me here. There was no conversation, and you don't understand why I'm an angry teenager now. And I
Mm-hmm.
started dating early, so I was like, I actually had a boyfriend. So how do we process that? So to me, if I work with someone one-on-one or in a group, I like to start with gathering information. We have to be clear. What are we trying to be doing? So
Mm-hmm.
we gather information, we prioritize, and another thing I want is basic needs. If you have basic needs that you need to take care of, there's no way you're gonna focus on taking care of yourself if you're worrying about other things. So let's eliminate basic needs. That could be childcare, your bills, things that you need to do. Go ahead and handle that, and then we can actually come back and focus. Like I want you to have a true sense of yourself and your situation before we start talking. Because if you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing that, you're gonna be lost. You're just gonna be doing little things I'm telling you to do, and it's not gonna help out. And
Mm-hmm.
next thing we do is we get a clear idea of what's blocking you for practicing self-care. What did you learn from your profession? What did you learn from your house, from other people? What does self-care mean to you? Like when I say self-care, do you just think, oh, I need to get my nails done, do my hair, massage? Like, is this what you think, or you think something else? So if we can get clear of what blocking you from having a practice, then we can start exploring. Okay, like, okay, how do we explore other things? So meditation is big. How do you know how to meditate? Do you know how to journal? Do you spend time to yourself? Would you run from yourself if you had to sit with yourself for just 15 minutes? What comes up? Like, because to do self-care is to actually be able to be with yourself. Like, there's no noise, there's no other people around. How do you sit with yourself, and are you okay with that? Because the idea of being busy, always busy, is a trauma thing.
Mm-hmm.
Running away from something to be busy all the time. I don't care of not being busy. I don't need to be busy. I hate being busy. Like I said, if I feel overwhelmed, seriously, I go take a nap. I'm like, oh no, that is way too much on my plate.
Mm-hmm.
You need to figure out like how to take that away. Uh,
Yeah.
and celebrate. If you spend 5 minutes telling yourself you love yourself, you do affirmation and stuff, celebrate that. Because people don't celebrate the small thing. You waiting for something big to happen to celebrate. Ooh, child, celebrate. You were able to wake up today and do something you need to do on your list. Celebrate that. Give yourself a little pep talk. Because if we are good with who we are, we're not gonna look out there to get the validation. So
Mm-hmm.
self-care. So what I like to say, self-care is the ultimate form of self-love. Because if you truly love yourself, you will take care of yourself, because you will not want to sacrifice everything about you just so you can give somebody else something. And we're not giving them the best anyway, because it's not coming from the best of us. So that's my little tips.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. Of course, for me, I think the mindset piece is critical. But also, you said something very critical, which is about if you have a lot of other things that you need to clear up, then it's going to be hard for you to focus on yourself.
Yes.
And that is why clearing those things up is a part of your self care.
Exactly.
You
Because
know,
you'll be like,
that's
oh,
why.
okay, because basic needs will always be around. The
Right.
mortgage will always be around and stuff. It's how do you not feel overwhelmed with the stuff, the responsibility you have? Because I think sometimes people will ask me, how do you leave home and you don't take your kids? And I'm like, one, they have a father. And two, I don't understand the question for me, because I'm like, no, we have an agreement in my family. Mommy and daddy's not going to sacrifice themselves
Mhm.
just because.
Mhm.
We were a person first before the kids.
Right.
So now we're not neglecting them. They're not wanting for stuff or needing or anything, but we understand the point of, no, mommy and daddy needs to be good. Now, if
Mhm.
we need to have a date night, I'm not gonna let anyone watch them. Like I said, my daughter's 8, my son is 3, and they have not slept without one of us in the house or somewhere for more than one night. And we have family members around. But I'm not comfortable with it. I want my child to be able, if I ask a question, they can tell me what's going on. And now, again, it's not because I don't trust other people. It's because I trust my experience in myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not putting you in that situation when I'm like, oh, yeah, doesn't matter. I don't care if you're family.
Mm-hmm.
Those are my kids. And I had them in my late 20s and 30s. I wanted to be a mommy. So I don't want them to feel guilty for me having them. No,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted them. I've been wanting to be a mommy for a long time, and I took my time to get there. So, no, let's balance it out.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, this practice of self-care is something you can always find something to do within your self-care. And I think that also it's very critical that we don't beat ourselves up
Oh, yes.
no matter what, because the truth of the matter is that we are going to take time to learn about ourselves and return to ourselves. And, again, part of our self-care is it's from the small to the big. And so even the whole, having to pay off bills or whatever in order to get to a space where we can do what we truly value. I think another part that I also focus on is being more values centered. So again, and anybody can do that, being values centered, no matter where you are financially, no matter where you are spiritually, anybody can say, these are my values and this is what I'm working towards living fully in.
And the thing about money too is I will spend money on traveling. Now, if you say, do you own anything name brand? No, I don't see the value into that. So it's knowing like, okay, what do you focus on? And if you are into name brand, what is that bringing to you? Like, is it adding some kind of value into your life? Or are you just buying the stuff so you can say, hey, again, I'm keeping up with the Joneses? Because I'm like, no, I will spend that money on plane tickets any day. But ask me to go shopping somewhere, and I'm like, do I need this now? What am I going to be doing with this? So it's always funny because I only wear shoes when it's cold, but you will find me barefoot or wearing flip-flop. And if I'm inside the house, and I'm from the island anyway. So I'm like, I don't want stuff in my feet.
Yeah.
I need to be like communing with Mother Nature and walking on the dirt and stuff. So it brings no value to me to have the name brands.
Right. And that's again part of self-care, and you knowing yourself and you doing things that are actually of you, not what you think you should do, not what you have been taught to do by society or even by your family.
Oh yes.
What is authentic?
I'm the weird one in the family because they're like, what? What is going on? But I think the way I felt when I was growing up, I was the weird one, but not the way everyone comes to me now and asking for advice. I'm like, interesting. Because growing up, I was the black sheep. They're like, we don't understand you at all. Like, what's going on with you? Where are you getting this from? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. But I did it. And the thing is, growing that way, you don't trust those things until later on. Like, oh, that's my superpower. Taking care of myself. That's it. But I didn't get that from my family.
Exactly. That's definitely part of, again, this is the in-depth pieces of self-care. So anyway, and again, when you are able to rest fully and be authentic with your self-care, you will build better relationships with people because you're able to keep your boundaries solid. You will expect those kinds of boundaries and encourage those kinds of boundaries for others. right?
Yes.
So, if you see that your friend is tired, you'll be like, listen, sis, you need to go to sleep. Okay, ain't nobody trying to be running around.
We're good.
Or hold your friend accountable. Like, listen, we trying to be on a budget so we can pay these debts down so we can be in Greece next year. We ain't trying to be doing all that shopping. Okay, so all of those things are a part of your self-care, the big and the small. And so, I really appreciate you, Joanne, for coming on and speaking to us about that and giving us these critical tips around being a parent, being a mother, being a woman, and practicing self-care and really thinking about it in another way. I think that this is very useful for women who may be starting families, women who already have families, women who are divorced and are looking to be in, create another family unit, whatever the case may be. I think it's critical to have these kinds of conversations and for us to start really building our lives around our authenticity as opposed to and what we know about ourselves instead of what we think we should be doing. Okay.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
So how can people connect with you?
Connect with me. I am on Facebook. Everything is on my name. So Johanne Osias. It's everywhere. Even my webpage is on my name, JohanneOsias.com. I am on Instagram. The handle is I am strong and powerful without an R in powerful. And what else am I? Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, my name again. And I like to say Chef Fabi is an extension of me. So everything that I like to do, cooking, traveling, self-care, I try to talk about those things. And if people are interested, we do the same. Bubble bath is my second favorite thing besides sleeping. So I am actually in the idea of creating homemade sugar scrubs or salt scrubs. Because I actually make my own. That's another idea. So yeah. So Johanne Osias, anywhere, everywhere, it's the same.
Excellent. And I'll certainly add that information in the description for the podcast so that people can connect with you.
Woohoo!
Connected.
Yay! Thank you so much. This was fun.
Yes, thank you so much. And thank you for everyone who is listening and for continuing to listen. And I look forward to seeing you on another episode of Mommy Matters. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, everyone. Peace.
Bye, everyone.
Did you like that? I know it was as informative for you as it was for me. Look, this is a process for all of us. And to keep this process going, I would love to invite you to donate to our podcast. We want to continue to give you high-level content, beautiful content that enlightens and inspires and broadens your vision to elevate you and evolve. So please feel free to go to the podcast page at anchor.fm/Mommy Matters. We would love to hear your questions and comments as well so that we can discuss them in future podcasts. And you can email that to mommyevolve@gmail.com. You can also visit the website and send your comments there. www.mommyevolve.com. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Peace and love.